Hey everybody, so today is solving quadratic equations by factoring day 2. So I'm going to do number 11, 12, 14, 17, 20, and 22 as example problems for you. So starting with number 11, we have n squared plus 8n equals negative 15. As I said yesterday, you need to move this negative 15 to the other side of the equal sign so that you have a trinomial that you can factor out. I'm not going to subtract n squared or subtract 8n to the right side because I need n squared to be positive. You do not want your leading term to be negative when written in standard form. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. When I add 15 to the left side, you'll notice that you do not have a common term that you can combine with. You don't have a like term. So it's going to be n squared plus 8n plus 15 equals 0. Once you get your trinomial, you can factor this. I'm not going to go through all the steps of factoring because by now you've been doing factoring for 3 weeks and you should know that the two numbers that multiply together to get positive 15 but add together to get positive 8 are positive 5, positive 3. If you don't know that and if you can't get to that step, then you need to go back and review your factoring problems. So if my two factors are positive 5, positive 3, it's going to be n plus 5, n plus 3 equals 0. And you can check this. N times n is n squared. N times 3 and n times 5 combined will be 8n. And then 5 times 3 is 15. You can quickly check that. So as I said yesterday, you set each binomial equal to 0. N plus 5 equals 0. When you subtract 5 from both sides, you'll get n equals negative 5. N plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides, and you get n equals negative 3. I'm going to go through these a little bit faster because this is day 2 and you should have a better understanding of how to work through these. I'm just doing extra practice for you. So that's number 11. N equals negative 5, n equals negative 3. Looking at number 12. Let me readjust my paper here so I can write. We have 5r squared minus 44r plus 120 equals negative 30 plus 11r. So again, I need all of my terms on one side of the equal sign. Well, I know that my leading term when written in standard form is going to be r squared. So I'm going to move these two terms over here with our like terms so that our r squared, our leading term, remains positive. So we'll start with term number 1. I'll do it step by step. Add 30, add 30. My like term is positive 120. So I get 5r squared minus 44r plus 150 equals 11r. These canceled. I combined 30 with 120 and got 150. Now I need to subtract out 11r. Well, 11r goes with negative 44r. Combining my like terms. 5r squared minus 55r plus 150 equals 0. These canceled. I'm writing kind of big so that you can see on the video. Now looking at this trinomial, you should recognize that you have a GCF. Hopefully you can recognize that your GCF is 5. 5 can be factored out of 5, 55, and 150. When I factor out of 5, I'm left with r squared minus 11r plus 30 equals 0. Okay, once you, let me use the scratch paper because I want to do number 14. I'm going to continue on this scratch paper here. Once you get to this point, you need to factor out the trinomial in the parentheses here. So you're left with 5. Set up my binomials. Now again, I'm not going to work out how to find the two factors because by now you should be able to do that. You should know that the two numbers that multiply together to get positive 30 but add to get negative 11 are going to be negative 5, negative 6. So r minus 5, r minus 6. If you still can't do this by yourself by now, that's a problem. You need to quit using photo math and actually learn how to do this because this is not hard. If you know how to multiply and add, you know how to factor. Negative 6 times negative 5 is positive 30. Negative 6 plus negative 5 is negative 11. It's not hard. Okay, so once you get to this point, you set each binomial and your GCF equal to 0. Well, my GCF is just 5. 5 equals 0, does nothing. 5 equals 0, just goes away. R minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides. I get R equals 5. R minus 6 equals 0. Add 6 to both sides. R equals 6. And that is number 12. Okay, so now I'm going to skip on down. I'm going to do number 14. Okay, number 14, again, I need a trinomial set equal to 0. Well, I'm not going to move these 3 terms over to be with 3b. I'm going to move 3b to be over with my 5b. I'm going to combine it with my light term 5b to keep my leading term positive. In order to do so, I'm going to subtract 3b. I'm going to subtract it from my like term, positive 5b. b squared plus 2b minus 35 equals 0. You have no GCF that you can factor out. So I'm going to set up my two binomials. And again, two numbers that multiply together to be negative 35, add to be positive 2 is going to be negative 5 and 7. b minus 5, b plus 7. b minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides, and I get b equals 5. b plus 7 equals 0. Subtract 7, and I get b equals negative 7. And that's it for number 14. So now I'm going to do 17. 17's seems like it's going to start off pretty hard, but it's actually one of the easiest ones, believe it or not. So again, I'm not going to subtract or add these 3 terms to be with 3. I'm just going to subtract 3 to be over here so I keep my leading term when written in standard form positive. Subtract 3. Uh-oh. 7k squared minus 6k. 3 minus 3 will become 0. plus 3 minus 3 is 0. So these cancel and those cancel. And it only leaves you with 7k squared minus 6k equals 0. Can you factor this? Well, the first thing I need to do is factor out my GCF. You should recognize that in this term and this term, you can factor out a k. When you factor out k, you're left with 7k minus 6 equals 0. Can you factor 7k minus 6? No, you cannot factor this. You just leave that as a binomial and set that binomial equal to 0. So let's take our GCF, set it equal to 0, k equals 0. Take this binomial, 7k minus 6 equals 0. Solve the two-step equation. Plus 6, 7k equals 6, divide by 7, k equals 6/7. So it looks hard, but it's actually quite easy. You don't actually have to factor anything. You just have to, or factor out a binomial. You just have to factor out the GCF, which is just k. And number 19, this one right here, is done exactly like this one, except it starts from this step. Starts from this step. So that's number 17. Let's do number 20. I have a b squared, a b, and a negative 18. I want my b squared, my leading term, when written in standard form, to be positive. Well, it's positive right here. So I want to leave this term on this side, so I'm going to subtract my 27b and add my 18. Well, there are no like terms on the left side of the equal sign to combine with. So this literally just gets written as b squared minus 27b plus 18 equals 0. I subtracted 27b and I added 18. At this point, you can factor because I have a trinomial set equal to 0. Check for GCFs. I have 10, negative 27, 18. There is no GCF that will factor out of 10, 27, and 18. I have a b squared, a b, and no b, so I can't factor out a b. So I've got to factor this trinomial. Now I'll go through the steps of factoring that on another sheet of paper here. Let's see, what was it? 10b squared.